Welcome to Coffee and Communications. I'm your host, Mark Johnson. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Betty Liu of Confetti. Now, here's the spiel. Confetti makes upcycled snacks from ugly veggies to reduce food waste and uses colorful plants to feed the hungriest people in the world using a Robin Hood approach. They donate a portion of their nutrient-dense snacks to end hunger and malnutrition by working with global humanitarian missions to distribute snacks in the poorest part of the world. Betty joins me today to talk about her and Confetti's journey, as well as the disruption that is currently happening in the food industry. Welcome, Betty. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Was my spiel about Confetti accurate?
Yes, extremely accurate. Yep.
That's great, because I stole most of it from your website. So
yes, I mean, we are extremely mission driven, and then this mission drives us every day and fills us with passion to create what we have to create.
Excellent. So yeah, I just want to dive straight into it. So just for anyone listening, a bit of context. I know Betty because she was part of a cohort at Big Idea Ventures, and she can tell you a little bit more about that journey than I can. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Betty for a little bit now, and seeing her kind of grow and kind of take her company forward. So just give me and to the listeners a little bit of a background about Confetti. Kind of what was your journey like? Where did this kind of genesis of this idea come about?
So we celebrate ugly veggies, and we craft them in a very special low heat, gentle preparation process. So they deliver on our powerhouse of taste and nutrients. And then we, Singapore being a culinary hub, as well as, we have very strong cultural roots from the East and the West. So what we really want to do as a company is really to infuse these exotic cultures, authentic recipes into our delicious veggies. So they are not only light, airy, and crunchy, but they are also extremely delicious. We have since won some awards like the Tasty Singapore Brand Ambassador for 2 years in a row. We have also been awarded recently the Best Gourmet Snack Brand of the Year by APAC Insider. And we have also got an exclusive feature on the Michelin Guide. So, we really love to bring veggies and let the global consumer look at veggies in a different light and really indulge in them and notice that, they actually taste so much better than potatoes. We use low-starch veggies like carrots, radishes, mushrooms, and okra. And then people are normally quite astounded by the taste of it. Like, hey, I didn't know a mushroom could taste like that, or okra can taste like that. So, the mouthfeel, we took 18 months of R&D to perfect. We use constant innovation, R&D testing in order to get the right profile, the right texture, the taste and mouthfeel to delight our consumers. And of course, celebrating diversity is something very important for us. Food is a social glue in almost any culture. So we really want to bring people together using a snack and celebrate diverse cultures of the world. So we have teriyaki barbecue inspired by the Japanese community. We have summer truffle inspired by the Eurasian community. And we have, green curry celebrating the Thai community. For every single flavor, even say the green curry, for example, you can taste complex elements of crushed kaffir lime leaves, creamy coconut milk, turmeric, and various spices, which celebrate Singapore's unique culinary heritage. And that's what we really want, to let people indulge in this and for them to realize that, hey, this tastes better than a potato chip. And not only that, it's also saturated and bursting with plant goodness. And say it's an excellent source of calcium, magnesium, zinc, and vitamins that are good for us as well. So they not only can indulge it in a snack that is good for them, at the same time, they get a sense of joy, happiness, and wonder by using our snack as a medium for traveling to different cultures as well.
And like on a personal front, I think that's fascinating, and sort of just a journey to kind of get to where you are with your product. But like just on a personal front for yourself, were you always determined to be, say, an entrepreneur? Was it always within the food industry that you kind of had an interest? I mean, you obviously talk very passionately about your, like, the love of food, and obviously we're in a part of the world that just has this amazing kind of food history, as well as like just kind of just so much of it. So kind of like in terms of a personal stance, like was this inherently something you felt like you were always driven to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the entire genesis of Confetti was, it came from an inspiration I had during my round the world tour. When I was 27, I retired, and, my mom retired from a long career in philanthropy. And then we decided to embark on a 3.5 year round the world tour. And we visited more than 40 different countries. And, it's during one of the hiking trips that I had in British Columbia, Canada, when I was inspired to create this concept. Because I was really trying to solve our own personal problem. I go hiking up the mountains quite frequently when I was in British Columbia. And I noticed that potato chips gave me a sore throat, and then fruits and veggies are very bulky, and it was very heavy on my backpack, which made it a bit tough for me to climb up the mountains and boulders. So I actually started going to farmers markets a lot in Canada, and then dehydrating my own snacks at home to bring up for the tours up the mountains with me. And I found that protein bars were, they had a cardboard-like texture, and it's not very inspiring. It's quite sterile and boring. So I started making my own snacks in my ideal, something that is a perfect snack. Not only does it taste good, but it also is nutrient dense and it's fun to eat. So I started slicing low starch veggies like, zucchinis, carrots, tomatoes, and then I dehydrated them in my own kitchen. And then I seasoned them with authentic spices from Singapore, because I was at that point a few years into the world tour, and I was feeling quite homesick because I really really missed the rich culinary diversity that Singapore had, which other countries didn't. So I started making and infusing Singapore recipes into the snacks, and I shared it with neighbors and friends in Canada, and they really liked it. So the light bulb moment really came when they asked me, if they could buy it, and if it was available in a supermarket, they would definitely pay for the snacks. So that's when I cut short my world tour, and I came back to Singapore to incorporate this company. And we are very grateful that the first investor we had was the Singapore government. And then once we proved some traction in the market, the VCs came on board as well to help us to expand this and scale this company so that we can delight more people from around the world. I have a very strong passion for food. I love visiting farmers markets, bazaars, food festivals, and from incorporating this company, it really fulfills my ability to experiment. I really am quite a creative person, so I love experimenting. I love tinkering with different recipes. To me, confetti is really not only a means for me to provide some value to the world using a tasty, nutrient-dense snack. At the same time, it's a creative outlet for me as well. I really get to explore different flavors, different textures, to work with different fun, inspiring people. Just to be on this journey with a lot of talented people from around the world is a chance for me to really self-actualize by providing joy to people who taste the snacks and they love it. To produce is something that is very energizing rather than consume, and it actually puts me in a happier state as well. And I was thinking in creating this company, like how can we create a snack company that leaves a maximum impact? So the food waste is a huge problem. 40% of edible produce are dumped globally, while 8.6 million people die from hunger every year. So it's two huge problems facing the world today, despite how beautiful this world is, and the breathtaking landscapes and different fascinating cultures that the world brings. It also faces a lot of challenges, problems, and suffering as well. So if we can create a company in a way that is very compassionate, that leaves a strong impact on our fellow human beings and ecosystem, I think it would be so much more meaningful for our team. So I decided to really tackle the food waste problem by upcycling ugly produce or crop surpluses into nutrient-dense, tasty, and award-winning snacks. And then at the same time, a portion of whatever we make goes to feeding the hungriest people in the world. So the whole concept is, the faster we scale, the more we can do to address hunger, as well as food security and food waste as well, and repurpose them to its highest possible value.
Interesting. And on that point, actually, a question I've got for you is, do you think that your segment of what is a kind of a growing industry, and what I mean by that is kind of sustainable foods, whether it's sort of plant-based, whether it's kind of what you're doing with kind of vegetables and things like that, do you feel like your segment is probably more scalable quicker because people are less inherently, like, I mean, if you think about it, there's already people like snacks, but they're probably less indented into, even myself, like I've seen my trajectory change in terms of my snacks that I would eat nowadays, because there are these great products coming on the market that are far more sustainable, compared to, say, asking people to change some of their other habits, especially in terms of meat eating and things like that. So do you think that you're in the right kind of area, because it's probably, or from my own point of view, probably more scalable, quicker over the next few years?
Yes, absolutely. I find that this space has been getting more and more interest, especially with governments. There are so many associations involved in increasing the profile of plant-based concepts, cell-based concepts, as well as more sustainable ways of creating food and producing food in our ecosystem. So I find that, not only our businesses and consumers demanding more for eco and sustainable practices. At the same time, the government is also pushing for it. So for example, Singapore Food Association and the Singapore government, they also have a mandate to be for 30 by 30, which is like we have to be 30% of domestic production by year 2030. And, it's not only helping us in terms of the ensuring and securing food security, at the same time, how can we increase the efficiency of our food system so that less of it ends up in a landfill or thrown away, even though they are perfectly edible? And I think one key thing is really that fruits and vegetables are perishables at the end of the day. They have a limited shelf life. They don't last for more than a week. So, if farms on their own, they can't actually produce exactly as required by the market. They normally produce a bit more or a bit less. So as a result, there are so many millions of tons of edible, nutrient-dense produce that are thrown away every year. And I mean, the statistics is shocking, right? 2.8 trillion pounds that are thrown away every year, even though they're healthy and good for you. And what if we could actually filter them out of the system and then upcycle them to something useful? I think that's something that not only is a strong interest for governments in terms of food security, and from the consumer perspective, they are demanding more sustainable products. So they have a feel good effect after they consume it, because they know that this is actually resolving huge problems facing the environment. And then there's a larger and larger ecosystem of mission-based entrepreneurs and businesses supported by NGOs as well as food associations like the Upcycled Food Association to really upcycle snacks to prevent them from ending up in, say, an incinerator or a landfill. In fact, 8% of human-caused greenhouse gases actually come from food loss and waste. So reducing food waste is actually considered the single greatest solution to climate change. And globally, we lose about 1 trillion USD per year on food that is wasted or lost. So upcycled food actually captures that value and leverage it to create a sustainable and resilient food system. And what we do in Confetti is all about elevating food to its highest and best use for human consumption, and really to upcycle ingredients that are extremely packed with nutrients and vitamins. So we can offer some people a better for you snack on the go, no matter how busy they are.
So would you say one of the challenges is today not only kind of obviously reducing that waste, but obviously educating the wider population? Because I was thinking, obviously, one of the issues we have with food waste is not just obviously overproduction or underproduction in farming, but humans themselves in terms of their own purchasing sort of characteristics, where they may overpurchase, especially vegetables. I mean, I'm even guilty of it and I'm trying to get better, but like if I'm just one person who's probably fairly in tune to what like sustainability and issues around that, but like there's a lot of food wastage just at home, and obviously what needs to happen is obviously humans need to also educate themselves or sort of be part of a wider dialogue to ensure that they're not over purchasing and then wasting the food at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely with you on that. I think your perspective is completely accurate, and I find that this problem about food waste is actually gaining so much visibility right now, even with Michelin chefs and teaching people on how to use the food scraps at the end of the day to repurpose them to make a Michelin grade menu. And also hotels, even 5-star hotels like Hyatt, they are also placing more emphasis on tackling food waste. Of course, the government is supportive as well, and different food associations. So I think this has been getting a lot of visibility in the media. Misfits Markets recently raised 85 million to actually bring imperfect fruits and veggies into the doorsteps of hundreds of thousands of American households at a discount. So people not only get affordable groceries sent to their doorsteps, but they are also really, really addressing the problem of food waste and upcycling them. So I think with the media's help, as well as different stakeholders in the food system and the governments, I think people are getting more and more awareness of this issue. And in a poll done by Upcycled Food Association, they found statistically that 60% of people actually want to buy more upcycled food products, because 95% of us actually want to do our part to reduce food waste. So as we get more and more stakeholders, be it pet food, human food, snacks, I think there are so many stakeholders now who are jumping on the bandwagon. And then if everybody spreads this message and educates the consumers, we leave a much more viral impact, and ensures that this message is distilled to the wider public in the most efficient way.
That's interesting. And I can see why, especially with that survey, I think food waste, or what we do on a day-to-day in terms of our eating habit, is probably one of the most tangible things we can actually see in terms of our own wastage and kind of impact. I think a number of other things, actions we need to take in terms of sort of the SDGs and things like that, can seem a little bit far removed, and you don't always kind of have a tangible understanding of how much yourself are wasting and all this kind of thing. So I think it's very interesting that, I think, kind of backing up what you're saying, there's such a big opportunity when it comes to kind of educating and people improving their habits. One thing I wanted to kind of just pivot a little bit to, but it's obviously one of the big questions of our time. On this podcast, we've actually spoken to a number of different social enterprises, or people doing kind of work in kind of industries that are doing a positive impact on society. So we've had like solar lanterns, we've had sort of ethical travel, and we've had someone who kind of helps sort of rural artisans kind of get their products out to the market. Each one of them has been fundamentally impacted in a totally different way by COVID, some positive and some hugely negative, I think. And they've all pivoted and done amazing things to kind of deal with the current situation. So could you just talk us through sort of like just both the opportunities and challenges that the last year have had on yourself and Confetti?
Yes, absolutely. So COVID has been a very interesting era, but I feel that, being a startup and an entrepreneur, is very important to be adaptable and flexible, no matter what the market throws at you and whatever the climate is like. So for Confetti, it's actually, COVID has been something that actually help us in a beneficial way. Firstly, because during times of uncertainty or recessions, people tend to comfort eat more. So what Confetti offers is permissible indulgence, right? You still get the indulgence of having a crispy, delicious snack, but at the same time, it gives you all the vitamins and minerals that fortifies your immune system. So we find
I should have been eating more of your stuff last year, because I wouldn't have got so unhealthy and had to do so much work to lose it this year. So anyway, carry on.
Yes, absolutely. And it is permissible indulgence in many ways, because we are offering something that is low in starch, high in nutrients, it's very tasty. In fact, food sales and grocery sales have soared since the pandemic. Supermarket sales have gone up a lot, and especially online grocery marketplaces, as people don't want to go out and socialize or be out too much. So our largest repeat orders actually come from online marketplaces such as Pandamart and even KrisFlyer. So these two are our largest ones. So KrisFlyer from Singapore Airlines, there are a lot of people stranded here now, and then they still have to redeem their miles before they expire. So some people have actually, redeemed their miles and paid a discounted price to redeem our snack boxes on the KrisFlyer website. We find that our D2C sales on our confettisnacks.com website have also went up a lot. People value convenience now. They don't have much time, especially being a typical urbanite in Singapore. You are so pressed for time trying to manage work. I think people just find it easier to get the foods sent straight to them. So we find really strong growth in both brick and mortar supermarkets, convenience stores, as well as online market platforms as well. In terms of the challenges, I would say that, the shipping costs have went up, and I think it impacted everyone, not just us. And I think certain retailers are hit very badly due to the COVID shutdown. But the thing is, the grocery sales and online sales for groceries have picked up and soared, mainly because people are working from home. They need snacks in the middle of the day or after their workout. COVID has really impacted consumer behavior by quite a lot, quite significantly. I mean, people have really found that, hey, it's so easy to get groceries to my doorstep within an hour. So because of the convenience value, we find that, both the brick and mortar as well as our online sales have increased quite a lot, because people are demanding something like that. They want something tasty, they want something indulgent, but still something that they can still give to their children and share with their family and friends without having the guilt factor, because it is full of nutrients as well as fiber and minerals that are good for them.
Excellent. And I was going to ask, because you mentioned, obviously, just as an entrepreneur, you've got to be resilient and that type of stuff. Has there been anything that you found out about yourself that you're surprised about this last year, or even just since kind of you began this journey over the last few years? Is there anything that you're like, okay, I'm surprised that like something I didn't notice before?
That's a really, really good question. I find that I'm actually quite good in finding creative solutions for to make confetti a household brand. It's that's our number one challenge right now. I mean, with COVID or without COVID, any challenger brand in the market, their number one challenge is really building a strong brand and getting the word out there, so that the turnover for the sales is high and people know about us, and then they keep coming back for repeat purchases. I think that's the number one challenge. Like, how do you make a challenger brand into a household brand that everybody knows about? So I mean, I think I've really surprised myself in the sense that, I found a lot of creative ways. How do we get visibility with the least amount of money or no money at all? We really have to bootstrap every single day because we have limited capital. And then how do we get the maximum impact? So we really have started engaging with a PR angle. We even made coloring postcards for a collaboration with DBS Bank and DBS Foundation, where people can color fruits and veggies on a coloring page on a postcard, and then they can write a very sweet personalized notes behind and give it to their best friend or their colleague or their family. And in the COVID era, everyone is just stuck on back-to-back Zoom calls, or they're just feeling or struggling with feelings of isolation. So using art as a therapy, as they color, it relieves some of their stress, and also is a positive reinforcement for them to eat more veggies and fruits. Yeah, so I think we'll give you one of the postcards as well. So every time you feel stressed, you can just color them. And then it reminds you to eat your colors of the rainbow, and also to get more plant-based nutrients in your diet, and really to look after your own mental and physical well-being. I think that's really important. Yeah, and I think the other thing I really surprised myself with is the fact that I don't have a choice but to wear many different hats. So I am the founder. I'm also, the strategy officer. I'm also the COO. I have to look after operations, and I'm also the CMO. I have to look after marketing, and I also have to be the VP of sales, because I have to go down to every single buyer's office and pitch every single buyer on my own at the initial stage, because we are, we have capital constraints. So I'm wearing many different hats, and I realized that when it comes down to it and you don't have any other choice, you just adapt, and then you just are versatile in taking on different roles. There are some skill sets which I did not know I had. So I really had to learn fast as well, and to just cater whatever I need to cater to the company to help it to grow.
Interesting. And I think one of the things that sort of I mentioned to you actually when we were discussing this podcast, that I mean, your colorings and I think your comms, PR, marketing, your branding, all of that into the word. And I think I think anyone listening to this, really check it out if you're not watching this on YouTube, because there are some really impressive visuals that I think very much stand out, and kind of really, when you talk about colors, you're really not lying. It's like such a central part to kind of what the kind of brand is. So can you just talk us a little bit about how you kind of came on some of this kind of branding that you've kind of come up with? And I think also just sometimes some of the things you play with in terms of ideas to use online is also really fascinating and very creative.
Yes, I think yeah, great question, Mark. I think that the snacks industry, we are competing with billion-dollar brands. There's like 200 SKUs of snack brands out there. It's extremely competitive and ruthless, and whatever ways that we can get attention or visibility in a creative way that doesn't burn a huge hole in our pocket, we do it and we capitalize on it. So we really have to think out of the box, because we are not Lay's or Pringles with millions in a marketing budget. We need to get the word out there using the most capital efficient way possible. So in terms of our branding, we find that the way that we can get attention quickly, because primarily, snack is still very much an impulse purchase. A consumer only has nanoseconds when you walk past the aisle to capture their attention in those nanoseconds. So packaging is really, really key. I mean, if we wanted to create something that captures your imagination and your curiosity and drive the impulse purchase for people who have, at a very, very first touch point when they encounter the brand for the first time. And not only do we want the branding to really capture curiosity and imagination and fun and the playfulness of the brand to connect emotionally with the consumer. More importantly, it should be colorful to reflect what's inside. What we have inside is really colorful, nutrient-dense veggies. There are radishes, there are beautiful carrots, there is beets, there's mushrooms, there's okra. All the different colors is very important to be showcased and highlighted on the packaging itself. So we really, really want people to enjoy the colors of the rainbow, because different colors have different sets of phytonutrients that are good for them. So to celebrate colors, and the most heartwarming part is when kids actually enjoy these veggies, because normally their parents have such a hard time feeding veggies to the kids. But once the kids have something in such a crunchy and delicious form, they actually love it so much that they get their parents to buy more for them. So we are really changing people's mindset, even from a very, very young age, to love veggies rather than feel repulsed by it. And I feel that that's one of the things that really gives our team a lot of joy and meaning, that we can use veggies in a way that brings a pleasure and joy and delight and wonder for people. So to translate that into a packaging form took us 4 to 5 months. We have a creative director called Michael Kravitz. He's actually based in Brooklyn, New York. We have a team of retail gurus and entrepreneurs on our team. We actually work together to actually create this brand, and to think about the brand architecture, what sort of messages that we are trying to convey, the messaging, the message positioning, to ensure that we have one strong message rather than several diluted ones, and really drive home the message that colors are good for you. Enjoy the colors. There's a much better alternative to just corn and tortilla and potatoes. There's a whole world of thousands of fruits and veggies out there that is a much better snack, that it tastes amazing and also provides so much more nutrients. So the next step after we created the brand architecture with Michael Kravitz and our team of advisors and retail gurus, the next step is really to test on the consumers and the retailers, like asking the consumer, would this attract your attention? Would this make you want to purchase this? And of course, the most important one is, our customers, who are actually supermarkets, convenience stores, grocery channels. We need to ask them what they feel about it, because buyers have so much experience, decades of experience buying snacks. They know what is going to sell and what is not going to sell. So we ask different stakeholders in our entire supply chain to ensure that the packaging at the end of the day is something that really connects and resonates emotionally to the end consumer.
And I think it's, I think it sort of, to reinforce it, it does really stand out. So you can tell there's a lot of work that's kind of gone on behind the scenes, especially on the kind of branding point. Because it's very eye-catching. It kind of all, I think it's what I think is very important is that, in fact, like you say, it tells a consistent story. And sometimes I find, I mean, it's just the nature of being a startup, that you kind of have a very clear understanding of who you are and what your messaging is very early on. But as you kind of go through your reiteration of your kind of product, and just also the team might grow, you can often lose that. And it's kind of one of the things we talk to sort of people about, is that ensuring you've got that consistency of message about what you're trying to say about yourself, It's called, like, there's a thing called the authenticity gap, which is about ensuring what people experience of your brand is as close to what you perceive it is as possible. Otherwise, you have problems with how people connect with your brand. So I think that's something that definitely comes very clear, and it comes across when it comes to looking at sort of both the packaging and kind of you in a supermarket, but also your online kind of persona. I think matches that very, very well. There's a couple of other things I just wanted to talk about, just to get your thoughts on as a entrepreneur and an expert. So we talked a little bit about earlier about just the industry, the changes that are happening. So what do you just see happening over the next few years from your own kind of personal point of view in terms of the growth of sustainable foods, plant-based, cell-based foods, also the dairy or non-dairy market? And do you see any issues that might kind of crop up in the next few years? Any kind of potential problems that the industry might face? Yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, I think, this entire concept about, being environmentally aligned is actually slowly gaining traction. And I think more and more people are becoming more conscious in terms of their purchasing decisions, as well as their consumption patterns. So we have seen a very strong vegan scene in Singapore, and of course in other markets like North America and Europe, where people are actually demanding for tasty vegan options. They even have meat-free Mondays in a lot of offices in, say, UK. And, people are gaining awareness of it. And, organizations like Green Monday as well as Green Queen Media have really shown a very strong media spotlight on this issue, on how, by cutting down on meats and meat-related products, we can actually do our part to reduce carbon emissions and reduce our impact on climate change. So I find that there's so much food waste also in the system that can be upcycled and repurposed to something useful, tasty, and nutrient dense. So I really find that if we can provide plants in a way that is not only sustainable, but also respects Mother Nature, while providing the nutrient and the taste profile to the end consumer, that's how we actually get them to really switch to a more plant-centric diet and really indulge in plants. Like the first time I had a vegan meal on Green Common, I was so impressed that, I had this rendang chicken curry with a roti prata, and I was so astounded. I was like, wow, I mean, it tastes exactly like a very tender, juicy chicken. And I can't even imagine that it's not meat. It tastes so much alike in terms of the texture, the taste, and it's so juicy and tender, but there's no saturated fat because it's not meat from meat. So I think that as people feel curious about this industry and try different options, in the vegan space, they'll feel that they're actually not missing out on much, because there's virtually almost every plant-based substitute of any given food product right now that's available. So, and I think as people gain more and more awareness about this, they would gradually change their consumption patterns and start to demand for tasty, super high quality vegan offerings. And your other question is really about hurdles, right? Like what sort of challenges that we face. I think for the vegan and sustainable mission-driven food ecosystem, the largest hurdle would really be education of the consumers en masse. Like we really need to spread the word quickly, and I find that a lot of newspapers, magazines, food trends are really shining the spotlight on vegan offerings at the moment and going plant-based. So I think not only the media is helping support this vision, even the end consumers are also starting to demand more and more of it. We have a Tech in Asia event which is celebrating alternate vegan meats, and that event sold out within a few days. And then there's a huge people on the waiting list, which really shows us, even in a small market like Singapore, there's so much curiosity and interest in this space. So I find that, surely and progressively, we are gaining that attention, and we are slowly changing the consumer mindset and catering them into something that is better and tastier and better for the environment. The other hurdle we have is really about the logistics as well as supply chain aspect. To upcycle fruits and veggies into nutrient-dense snacks, there's a way that we need to actually collect the crop surpluses or ugly produce, and then we need to process them. So I think the logistics part to capture the produce from different stakeholders like supermarkets, the food bank, farms, wholesalers, the logistics component is one of the hurdles as well. Shipping costs have went up by quite a lot. So to tackle this challenge, it really pays to have a hyper localized strategy where you collect from different stakeholders in a very concentrated geographical region and then upcycle them to snacks and then supply to the same market. So we keep everything really localized.
Before we end, I wanted just to ask you on a personal and a company level, sort of what are your hopes over the next year or two and just in the long term, like what do you want to achieve?
Yes, great question. I mean, my hopes and aims for the future is we have three things. One is to provide the best tasting snacks and plants out there for people to enjoy and indulge in by working with the best technologies in the field, food scientists and entrepreneurs who are mission-led. The second thing we really want to do is to alleviate hunger while repurposing food waste into a higher level and using entrepreneurship to really a social entrepreneurship to source, to donate, and to empower vulnerable communities. And this can really be realized by having strong partnerships with NGOs, with foundations like United Nations, World Food Programme, and various governments of the world. And the last thing is really to empower communities of young entrepreneurs. So we give them a means to elevate themselves and to realize their own dreams. I think a lot of the future is based on the next generation. So if they have their mindset that, they can create whatever they want, they can put their own footprint in this world and they can make the world a better place by, using entrepreneurship to not only self-actualize and bring the most brilliant things in their mind out to the real world, and whatever they bring to the world causes other people joy as well. I find that it would be a way for them to actually contribute in a way and really realize true happiness. So we are doing a lot of events to realize that in terms of giving talks in schools. We might be publishing a book soon to empower young entrepreneurs. And also we are quite active in different events so that we can not only educate people about sustainability, upcycling, and also to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs who would change the world. I just want to say that, this space in plant-based innovations as well as cell-based meats, they are improving so much to a level that is astonishing. I mean, if you look at the portfolio of Big Idea alone, if you taste the meats from Karana, which makes it out of young jackfruit, or Black Sheep, they make lamb out of plants. And then when you slice into the lamb, it actually bleeds like a real piece of meat. And then you have when you compare the future pork with a normal pork in a blind test, it's so juicy and succulent and tender that most people actually choose the plant-based version without the saturated fat. And it has so much more protein and iron content. And then even if you look at, like, say, ground foods with their vegan cheese, I mean, the quality of the cheese is so high and it's really, really addictive and moreish. And I really want to say that at the last point about the cell-based technologies, because I really find that if they succeed and they manage to scale this, it would solve huge problems facing the world today. Like how Shook Meats is developing seafood out of their own labs. It would really prevent people the overfishing situation in the oceans. And then it really protects the ecosystem from a marine level, as well as to enhance the food security of the nation. And the other thing is, what Gourmet is doing with creating cell-based liver of foie gras, which is a huge delicacy, but it's so cruel because they force feed so many geese every year. So many countries are banning foie gras, and then for them to actually grow it out of a lab, so it actually reduces or minimizes animal cruelty. I mean, what all the portfolio companies and the founders, they are driven by something more meaningful and deeper than just business alone. I mean, they really want to create an impact, and whatever they are doing right now is really not only tastes amazing, is super nutrient dense, but at the same time, it really solves and tackles major environmental issues or humanitarian issues facing the world today.
Thank you again, Betty, for joining us. I think everyone would have learned a lot. So I really appreciate your time, and we would love to have you back at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Yeah, it will be a pleasure too. Thank you so much, Mark, for having me.